The revolver was once considered the simplest and most reliable handgun design ever produced. That reputation was earned through decades of careful manufacturing, but many modern revolvers are no longer built to those standards. Instead, buyers are finding crooked barrels, timing failures, broken firing pins, and cylinders that will not advance properly. And despite costing hundreds of dollars, far too many of them are nothing but garbage. In this video, we count down 9 of the worst examples and examine how the modern revolver market became so saturated with garbage. Number 9. Diamondback Sidekick. Diamondback Firearms released the Sidekick in 2022. This was Diamondback's first revolver. Before this, Diamondback was known for AR-15 and semi-automatic pistols. They had no revolver experience, and it shows. The Sidekick is a 9-shot rim-fire revolver in .22 caliber. It looks like a traditional single-action cowboy gun, but it's actually a double action with a swing-out cylinder. The price is around $320. The core problem is the frame. Diamondback used Zamac 5. This is a zinc alloy. Zinc is cheap. Zinc is not durable. The frame is the most important part of a revolver. Using zinc for the frame is a cost-cutting move that compromises everything. The trigger is terrible. The double-action pull measures 11 to 16 pounds. This is extraordinarily heavy. One reviewer's spring scale couldn't measure it. It was above the scale's limit. Shooting double action becomes impossible. The gun is designed to be cocked for every shot anyway, so the heavy trigger is a design flaw nobody needed. Owners report expansion issues in the zinc cylinder when firing .22 Winchester Magnum ammunition. The chambers aren't polished properly. Cases swell. Extraction requires hammering with a rod. The gun becomes unsafe to operate rapidly. The Sidekick proves that a company with semi-auto experience doesn't automatically understand revolvers. Diamondback brought their cost-cutting approach to the revolver market, and it failed immediately. Testing revealed that after 300 rounds, trigger bars broke. Owners also reported noticeable cylinder play, wobble when the cylinder was seated. This shouldn't happen on a new gun, but it does on the Sidekick. The gun costs $320. A buyer could find a used Ruger or Smith & Wesson steel-framed revolver that will outlast the Sidekick by decades. Diamondback tried to enter the revolver market without understanding revolver engineering. The Sidekick proves that first-time revolver makers don't know what they're doing, and the Zamac frame is the smoking gun. The Sidekick is what happens when a semi-auto company thinks they understand wheel guns. They don't. Number 8. Heritage Rough Rider Tactical. Heritage Manufacturing released the Rough Rider Tactical version in 2023. This is a modern revolver designed specifically for the 2020s market. It's a single-action .22 caliber with a threaded barrel and a Picatinny rail. It looks professional. The marketing says it's serious. The reality reveals a gimmick. The core problem is fundamental dishonesty. Heritage tried to put tactical branding on a gun that costs $130 to manufacture. They added a red dot rail. They added a threaded barrel. They slapped on the word tactical. None of that changes what the gun actually is: budget pot metal trash. The frame is Zamac. This is a zinc alloy. Zinc is soft. Zamac is used in budget firearms because it's cheap to cast. But soft metal has consequences for tactical gear. The Picatinny rail is screwed into the Zamac frame. Owners report the screws strip, the holes enlarge, the screws back out, the rail becomes loose. You can't mount a red dot on a loose rail. The gun becomes less functional, not more. The threaded barrel creates another problem. Zamac is soft. Threading into soft metal is problematic. The threads don't hold. Users report barrels loosening after moderate use. You can't suppress a gun with a loose barrel. Heritage marketed this as a professional revolver for 2023 buyers. For $250, it's still a budget gun. For $300, it's pretending to be something it's not. Putting tactical rails on Zamac is like putting racing stripes on a golf cart. It doesn't change what it is. The trigger is the Heritage signature problem. Heavy, gritty, with rough spots throughout the pull. Add a red dot to a gun with a terrible trigger, and you've created a gun that looks good in marketing photos, but fails in the field. The Rough Rider. Tactical is the definition of false marketing for the 2020s. It's a $130 gun wearing expensive tactical clothes. The Zamak frame can't handle screw-in components. The trigger is worse with magnification. Heritage proved that branding something tactical doesn't make it tactical. It just makes it a dishonest budget gun. The 2023 release targeted modern buyers who wanted optics-ready revolvers. They got a Zamak Pretender instead. Number 7. Taurus 605 TORO. Taurus released the 605 TORO in 2023. This is the first optics-ready snub-nose revolver from Taurus. TORO stands for a red dot mounting system. The gun was designed for modern shooters who want optics on everything. The execution has been a disaster. The 605 TORO is a 5-shot .357 Magnum with a 3-inch barrel. The gun has a Picatinny rail mounted directly above the cylinder. This is the mounting system for a red dot sight. On paper, this sounds modern. In reality, it's been plagued with problems since release. Field reports from 2025 and 2026 document a critical failure pattern. The gun has a high failure rate. Owners report timing issues. The cylinder doesn't advance properly. The gun will fire and the cylinder won't index to the next chamber. This is a catastrophic failure, and it happens regularly on the 605 TORO. Testing reveals another problem. The mounting system for the red dot isn't secure. The sight rail becomes loose. Red dots shift off zero. Users fire at targets and completely miss because their optics have shifted. This defeats the entire purpose of an optics-ready gun. The 605 TORO is Taurus trying to be cutting edge. But they didn't solve the engineering problems first. They slapped an optics rail on an existing revolver design and released it to market. Warranty service has been overwhelmed. Owners sending guns back for timing corrections are waiting months for repairs. Taurus's customer service isn't equipped to handle the failure rate. The gun costs around $400. At this price, it should work reliably. It shouldn't have timing issues. It shouldn't have loose optics rails. Taurus proved that being first with a feature doesn't mean being good at it. The first optics-ready snub-nose revolver should have been engineered properly. Instead, the 605 TORO is a rushed product that fails in the field. The 2023 release was supposed to be innovative. Instead, it became notorious for high failure rates. Owners regret buying them. Gun shops are returning them. The 605 TORO is what happens when a company chases trends instead of solving problems. This gun is the modern era of revolver trash. Shiny features, fundamental failures. Number 6. Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 38. Smith & Wesson released the Bodyguard 38 in 2010. This was S&W's first integrated laser and polymer frame snub-nose revolver. The gun looked modern. The marketing promised innovation. The execution revealed fundamental flaws in the design philosophy. The Bodyguard 38 uses a polymer frame. Polymer means plastic. Plastic means cost savings, but polymer also means reliability problems that traditional steel frames don't have. The gun was supposed to be groundbreaking. Instead, it became notorious for failures. The biggest issue is the cylinder release. Smith & Wesson mounted it on top of the frame. It's a plastic component. This top-mounted cylinder release is awkward. It doesn't feel natural compared to traditional side-mounted releases. But the awkwardness is just the beginning. Owners report the cylinder release jams frequently. Plastic binds with plastic. The release gets stuck. Users can't open the cylinder. They have to tap it or force it. This is unacceptable for a defensive revolver. You need your gun to work immediately, not after tapping and wiggling. The built-in laser was the signature feature. It was supposed to be a selling point. Instead, it became famous for dying early. The laser module failed after weeks of use. Some units failed after days. Smith & Wesson's customer service wasn't equipped to handle the failure rate. The trigger is another nightmare. The double-action trigger pull is one of the heaviest Smith & Wesson ever produced, and it stacks. Stacking means the trigger gets progressively heavier as you press it. At the end of the trigger travel, it becomes almost impossible to press without disturbing your sight picture. This defeats the purpose of a defensive gun. The Bodyguard 38 costs around $400. That's not budget pricing. At this price, the gun should work reliably. The cylinder release shouldn't jam. The laser shouldn't die after a week. The trigger shouldn't be unbearable. Smith & Wesson tried to make a gadget gun. They prioritized features over function. The integrated laser was the gimmick. The polymer frame was the cost-cutting move. The plastic cylinder release was the engineering compromise. The Bodyguard 38 proved that being first with a feature doesn't mean being good at it. Smith & Wesson's first integrated laser revolver was a disaster, and the gun is still in production. The problems persist. Number 5. Rossi RP63. Rossi revived the RP63 in 2023 as part of a major brand reboot. Rossi is owned by Taurus. For years, Rossi had fallen out of favor. Taurus decided to revive the brand with new factory operations and new production. The RP63 is a 3-inch 357 Magnum snub nose. It was supposed to represent the new Rossi. Instead, it represents new problems. The RP63 is part of the Rossi revival. Taurus opened new production facilities. They promised improved quality control. They promised reliability. The RP63 became the flagship product for the comeback. Field testing reveals that the revival came with a new set of quality control issues. Owners report frequent firing pin breakage. The firing pin breaks cleanly, no warning, no gradual wear, just sudden failure during firing. Owners also report gritty triggers. The action feels like it's filled with metal shavings. The trigger pull is rough throughout. It doesn't improve with shooting. It stays gritty. This suggests machining debris that wasn't properly cleaned from the factory. The new Rossi factory promised better tolerance control. Instead, owners report loose barrels. The barrel can be loosened by hand. This is a fundamental assembly problem. The barrel shouldn't be hand loose when it leaves the factory. The RP63 costs around $400. At this price, the gun should be reliable. The firing pin shouldn't break. The trigger shouldn't feel like it was assembled from scrap metal. The barrel shouldn't be loose. Rossi's revival was marketed as a return to quality. Instead, it's a return to the old problems with new facility locations. Moving the factory didn't solve the problems. It just shifted where the problems get made. Owners bought the RP63 hoping to support a brand comeback. Instead, they got a gun with broken firing pins and rough triggers. The revival failed before it started. The 2023 release was supposed to prove that Rossi was back. Instead, it proved that Taurus's ownership means Taurus's quality standards, and those standards are low. The RP63 is what happens when a brand tries to resurrect itself without fixing the underlying manufacturing problems. New factory, same garbage. Number 4. Charter Arms, Pitbull. Charter Arms released the Pitbull in 2011. This was a new design meant to solve a mechanical problem. The Pitbull is available in 9mm or 40 S&W. Both are rimless cartridges. Traditional revolvers need moon clips to fire rimless rounds. Charter Arms wanted to eliminate moon clips. They designed the Pitbull with a mechanical solution. The Pitbull uses tiny spring-loaded fingers in the extractor. These fingers are supposed to hold rimless rounds without moon clips. The concept is clever. The engineering is fragile. These extractor fingers are the weakest link in the entire gun. They are small. They are delicate. They are made of spring steel, but they break. Owners report finger breakage after normal use. One finger breaks and the gun can't hold rimless rounds. The gun becomes disabled. Field reports document the fragility. After 200 rounds of 9mm, owners report broken extractor fingers. The gun stops working. Rimless cartridges fall out of the cylinder. The gun is now useless. The fingers also get gunked up. Powder residue builds up. Carbon buildup interferes with the finger mechanism. Users have to disassemble the extractor to clean it. This is complex work. It shouldn't be required on a new gun. The pitbull is charter trying to be innovative, but the solution is worse than the problem it was designed to solve. Moon clips work. They're reliable. They're proven. Charter decided to replace them with fragile spring-loaded fingers. Big mistake. The gun costs around $400. At this price, the extractor should be robust. Rimless rounds are common. The gun should handle them reliably. Instead, the pitbull's design fails. Owners who bought the pitbull hoping to avoid moon clips now face a gun with an unreliable extractor system. They gave up moon clips for something worse, and they can't go back because the gun doesn't have moon clip notches. The pitbull is what happens when you replace a proven solution with a clever idea. Moon clips were boring. Fragile spring-loaded fingers were innovative. Charter chose innovation over reliability. The pitbull proved that not every mechanical problem needs a new solution. Sometimes the old way is better. Number 3. Smith & Wesson Model 69. Smith & Wesson released the Model 69 in 2014. This was S&W's first 5-shot L-frame revolver in .44 Magnum. The gun was designed as a lighter-weight alternative to the heavier N-frame 629. The barrel uses a new two-piece design. This was supposed to be innovative. Instead, it became problematic. The Model 69 is a significant engineering change. Instead of a traditional single-piece barrel, S&W used a two-piece barrel system. The barrel attaches to a barrel lug. This design allows for a lighter gun, but it introduced new failure points. Field reports from 2014 onward document problems with the two-piece barrel design. The barrel can separate from the lug under recoil. This is catastrophic. The gun becomes unsafe. The barrel can literally fall off during firing. Users report the barrel connection loosening after moderate shooting. After 200 rounds of .44 Magnum, the barrel needs retightening. This shouldn't happen on a new gun. The barrel should stay connected. The forcing cone is another problem. With the two-piece design, the forcing cone gap is larger. This causes leading. The gun leaves excessive lead deposits in the barrel. Users report difficult cleaning and accuracy problems. Testing reveals the design is fundamentally flawed. The two-piece barrel saves weight, but it costs reliability. The connection point is a stress concentration. .44 Magnum creates massive pressure. The connection can't handle it reliably. The Model 69 costs around $500. At this price, the gun should be robust. The barrel shouldn't separate. The forcing cone gap shouldn't be excessive. Smith & Wesson designed the Model 69 to compete with Ruger. They wanted a lighter .44 Magnum revolver, but they cut corners on the barrel design to save weight. The two-piece barrel is the smoking gun. Owners who trusted S&W's engineering got a gun with a fundamental design flaw. The barrel can't reliably stay connected under recoil. This is an unacceptable failure for a defensive revolver. The Model 69 proved that innovation sometimes means introducing new problems. The two-piece barrel was designed for weight savings. It delivered weight savings and reliability failures. S&W never properly fixed the design. The Model 69 is still in production, and the problem persists. Number 2. Rock Island Armory AL 3.0. Rock Island Armory released the AL 3.0 series in 2019. This is a modern revolver imported from Turkey. It was designed to replace Rock Island's older revolver lines. The gun was supposed to represent modern manufacturing. Instead, it represents the decline of Turkish revolver quality. The AL 3.0 is a 6-shot 38 special with a 4-inch barrel. It costs around $300. Rock Island markets it as an affordable alternative to American-made revolvers. The execution reveals why budget imports are problematic. Owners report the AL 3.0 arrives with a rough finish. The metal looks unfinished. The frame has visible tooling marks. For a gun that costs $300, the finishing is unacceptable. This suggests manufacturing shortcuts at the factory. The trigger is the biggest complaint. Owners describe it as pulling concrete across sandpaper, heavy, gritty, with distinct rough spots throughout the pull. The action feels like it wasn't properly finished. Internal machining debris wasn't cleaned out. Field reports document mechanical problems. Some owners report loose barrels. The barrel can be rotated by hand. This is a fundamental assembly problem. The barrel shouldn't be hand loose when it leaves the factory. Others report cylinder alignment issues. The gun arrives out of time. Testing revealed inconsistent quality. One AL 3.0 worked reasonably well. The next one had loose screws and loose parts. Rock Island's quality control is non-existent. Some guns work, others arrive broken. After moderate shooting, owners report the cylinder advance becomes sluggish. The mechanical hand that rotates the cylinder gets gunked up. Carbon buildup interferes with smooth rotation. The gun requires cleaning to function properly. The AL 3.0 is supposed to be an affordable alternative to Smith & Wesson or Ruger, but affordability shouldn't mean arriving broken. The gun costs $300. At that price, basic function is a reasonable expectation. Rock Island designed the AL 3.0 to replace their older lines. They succeeded in replacing them with something equally bad. The newer series didn't improve anything. It just shifted where the problems get made. This gun proves that newer doesn't mean better. The AL 3.0 is just the old problems made somewhere else. Number 1. Smith & Wesson internal lock. The internal lock era began in 2001 when a company called Safety Hammer took over S&W's design process. They introduced a small lock mechanism to Smith & Wesson revolvers. The lock is on the hammer. A tiny key can engage it and disable the entire gun. On paper, this sounds like a safety feature. In practice, it created a catastrophic failure point. Modern Smith & Wesson revolvers all have this internal lock. Model 66, Model 629, Model 686, all of them. The lock is inside the frame. A small hole above the cylinder release gives access to the key. The problem surfaces under recoil. Heavy recoil causes the internal parts to shift. The lock can accidentally engage during firing. When this happens, the revolver literally stops working. The trigger won't move. The hammer won't cock. The gun becomes useless exactly when you need it most. Field reports document this problem repeatedly. Competitive shooters report lock engagement during heavy use. Defensive shooters report similar issues during practice. The gun just stops. No warning, no obvious cause. The lock self-engaged due to recoil. This is a 25-year-old problem. The internal lock was introduced in 2001. It's now 2026, and the lock is still on every modern S&W revolver, still causing failures, still turning defensive tools into paperweights. Gun owners have responded by removing the internal lock mechanism. This requires disassembly and modification. You have to drill out the lock. You have to plug the hole in the frame. It's not a factory warranty repair. Owners do it themselves. This proves they don't trust Smith & Wesson's design. The internal lock is a solution to a political problem, not a mechanical one. Safety Hammer wanted to offer child safety. They added a lock that a tiny key can open. So much for safety. A determined child can find a key. Smith & Wesson knew about the problems. Multiple owners reported lock engagement. Multiple review sites documented the issue. The company never removed the lock. They never redesigned it. They just kept selling broken guns. The internal lock is a regulatory compromise that created actual danger. It adds a failure point to a system that shouldn't have unnecessary moving parts. And every S&W revolver built since 2001 carries this flaw. This is the worst design decision in modern revolver history. Conclusion: the revolver industry faced a choice in 2026. Keep cutting corners or start building guns that work. Some manufacturers got it right. Ruger and Kimber proved quality is still possible. But Smith & Wesson, Heritage, Taurus, Rossi, Charter Arms, Rock Island, and Diamondback chose garbage. They prioritized profit margins over reliability. They shipped broken guns. They charged customers for warranty repairs instead of fixing manufacturing. They knew, and they shipped them anyway. Buyers have options. Stop buying garbage. Choose manufacturers who deliver quality. Reject guns with defects. Demand better. The industry will listen when money stops flowing toward broken revolvers.